My heart started hurting, and then all of a sudden, people start tagging me.
Tragedy in Whiteriver as a 16-year-old Apache girl's remains are found in early November. Now authorities are investigating Chalastia Colelay's death as a homicide. Then there's 17-year-old Merkeisha Declay, who was found dead in March of 2024. 2 dead teenagers in the same area in the last 2 years. The question tribal members are asking, what's happening in Whiteriver? I'm Justin Lum, and we are on the record. The missing murdered indigenous persons crisis has been an issue for a long time, especially in tribal communities that have not gotten enough coverage, I would say. And we're here to say specific names of 2 girls who have been lost. One of them being Chalastia Colelay. Her name has been in the headlines recently, 16 years old, and she was found dead in Whiteriver. I'm Fox 10 investigator Justin Lum, joined by Special Projects executive producer George Obi. And we have a lot to dive into, and we wanted to talk about 2 girls, not only Chalastia Colelay, but Merkeisha Declay. Now, we're getting more information consistently from the Bureau of Indian Affairs. I think the issue here that tribal members in the Whiteriver community on Apache land, I think that they are frustrated with White Mountain Apache police. We haven't got a callback. We haven't got a response. None of that. So Bureau of Indian Affairs, atop of them, the umbrella on this has now confirmed that a murder investigation is ongoing regarding Chalastia Colelay. But this is a sad case because I think we think of 14-year-old Emily Pike right away. There are some differences, and we'll get into that. And I said in the beginning of this episode just now, MMIP. A lot of people are more familiar with the term MMIW for the women, but I think that there has been an ongoing crisis that we're starting to hear about more, and I think that's a good thing for people in general that are indigenous, that are Native Americans, men, women, children. In this case, we have 2 teens that we're going to talk about. Now let's get to Chalastia first. This is the most recent case. In early November, she was found, but she went missing on October 17th, and that's when she told family members that she was going to a friend's house. Her biological parents live in Rainbow City in the Whiteriver area. She also has a godmother, like a second mom that she stayed with. Usually that's what we're being told by family. She was reported missing to White Mountain Apache police around October 27th. And then her biological mother, Tia, she goes by Tia, her biological mother, Lula, posted on Facebook that she was missing on the 28th of October. Fast forward, November 3rd, you get this Facebook post notification from the White Mountain Apache Police Department that remains have been found in the Knots Landing community. There's a description, I believe, not a lot was said. And as we talked about, it was clear that comments were disabled.
Yeah, and again, as we mentioned, that this is a community that relies on social media as a way to communicate amongst each other,
especially
right?
Facebook.
Yes, especially Facebook. And so the post of the remains being found in a community like this is obviously going to, it's not only going to resonate, but obviously going to spread, right? And so it took other community posts, other community Facebook groups in this area to not only post about the remains, but word had started to get out that that the remains were potentially related to, and in a roundabout way, they kind of alluded that these remains were of a teenage girl. More importantly, the clothes that were found resembled the clothes that Tia was last seen wearing.
Yeah.
And so the community started to piece together what was going on. But as you mentioned,
it was spreading very fast.
Right. And comments being disabled on the police post didn't give us a clear indication of whether or not, this was just a reactionary response from the community, or whether there was some validity to the fact that these remains and what was the clothing that were found at the scene were of Tia's.
Or are comments just always disabled for this Facebook account for WMAT police?
I don't know a lot. Yes, and they have not allowed comments on a lot of things. And as we will maybe dive into later, there may be a reason for that because of the issues in the last couple of years with this department.
So clothing description for Tia at the time, we didn't know was Tia, but size 8.5, black Converse high tops, black and white plaid pants, tan shirt. She's described as tall with a thin build, long brown hair, more long dark hair. So they, had their information out for any tips. Then there's another post on the 4th that the remains have been identified, the family's been notified, but no name had been released. But right away, like you said, that speed, that circulation of people talking and sharing and immediately going to Lula's Facebook post and saying, hey, you should call police right now. Remains have been found. And she told us she had been known as, she gave him the description, and it was confirmed later that night, I think the 5th, November 5th, around that time frame, that it was indeed her daughter, Chalastia.
It took 2 days for them to publicly identify her. We had spoken to family members who had spoken to detectives, and they had relayed to them that, look, there were pictures of the bracelet, the necklace, things that were specific to Tia, and they wanted to confirm with the family that these items did in fact belong to Tia. And I think the family kind of pieced together, well, then this is definitely her. There might have been some gray area where, well, maybe somebody had her possessions on them. This was somebody different. But again, it took about 2 days, and then White Mountain Apache finally publicly identified her.
But the big question is foul play involved. At the time, we couldn't report because we didn't know that. Family doesn't know. They're in shock. They're in disbelief. They're grieving. And at that point in time, was this a homicide? By November 8th, another Facebook post hits that page that federal agents, Navajo County Sheriff's Office Search and Rescue, White Mountain Apache Tribes Game Rangers, and police were conducting a search in the Knots Landing community that 16-year-old Tia was found dead in, and the public was asked to stay out of the area. Now, this automatically raises flags of, okay, what's going on? This sounds like a homicide investigation, but still, over the weekend, not getting much information at all from BIA.
And it's important to know BIA, obviously is the lead investigation team on this, the point of contact for all of this going forward. Probably the right decision. But again, as we've mentioned, getting any sort of information from this agency or any of these agencies is extremely difficult, but also very important because the public, we're kind of the intermediary between that. You're not getting a lot of communication from any of these agencies on social media. In fact, I think the only ones really putting it out there were White Mountain Apache, and it was very limited. And again, the comments disabled. We've seen this in the past where they will, put out information on social media. All these agencies do it. It seems like it's gotten more prolific in the last couple of years, where some agencies are only providing updates on their social media platforms. And look, Facebook, I get it. As we mentioned earlier, Facebook is how a lot of these residents and family in this community are getting their information, not just via the news, but again on Facebook. So
I think it says a lot that we broke the story November 5th, and White Mountain Apache Police posted on the Facebook a screenshot of BIA's press release or response to us asking about the confirmation of Chalastia being found. And they did name her, and they said this was about getting closure. They didn't say justice yet. They said closure for the family. So we had gotten that confirmation on the identity, not only by the family, but by BIA. White Mountain Apache Police just takes BIA's posts, puts it up there on Facebook, and that's it. So I think there is the frustration with the lack of transparency. I mean, they're posting on Facebook, but they are not talking to the media right now. They're letting BIA handle everything. And now we know that this is a homicide investigation. So a lot of, tips have probably been coming in to the BIA's hotline, missing and murder unit. And the question is, what was being searched for in this area? What clues and evidence, DNA related evidence type things? I spoke to the family the same weekend, and they were able to confirm that this was a homicide investigation. And then shortly after, BIA did the same. So here we have this terrible murder of this 16-year-old girl, Chalastia, who had been reported missing twice in October of 2024. Just for context, those cases were closed. She came home, everything was fine, but the family really wants to make it clear that, she didn't run away this time, that she was just believed to be at a friend's house. Where her remains were found were about a mile away from her home in Rainbow City, so not too far at all. Let's talk about missing person protocols with DPS and the Turquoise alert that obviously was created in honor of Emily Pike, who was found dead outside of Globe. There are certain criteria you have to meet.
There are, and quick overview. There are 4 alerts in Arizona. For those watching, I think most of us know what those alerts are. But again, the most notable being an Amber Alert. That is a state-run and federally run, or run at both a state and national level, right? So we all know that it's been around for about 30 years now, and so those are that's probably the most common alert that we get. We get them on our phones. You see them on the ADOT billboards, right? There is also the Silver Alert, which is now the Safe Alert. That was changed in September of this year. That deals with elderly, 65 and older, right? Certain criteria, again, need to be met. You have obviously the Blue Alert, which we've seen sparingly. That is to attempt to locate individuals who may have injured or killed a police officer in the line of duty. Then you have the new one, the Turquoise Alert.
Very new.
Yeah. July of this year. Originally, it was House Bill 2281, named after, as you mentioned, Emily Pike, to highlight and really bridge the gap. According to lawmakers and those responsible for this, it was designed to bridge the gap or fill in the gaps in these missing alerts for younger people, right? I mean, I think the emphasis was on trying to find a way to alert the public effectively when a young person goes missing. But again, there are certain criteria that need to be met. And what we have learned, at least in the first few months since this bill passed and was signed into law, is that there is frustration from, I think, more so the public, and maybe even more specifically, family members of young people who go missing.
They want that alert faster.
Right. And I think it's frustrating. It's frustrating to them to hear that there are criteria that need to be met. And you will hear in certain instances, I've seen quotes from law enforcement, specifically DPS, where their hands are tied in certain scenarios when those criteria aren't met. And it may be, as a parent, right, for me, it may be self-explanatory to say, well, look, if a young person goes missing, why isn't that enough to qualify for some sort of alert? And Turquoise Alert specifically is meant to again, look for anybody who might be in danger that maybe doesn't meet an Amber Alert or, say, a Silver Alert. And I think we may see those criteria changed or altered in a way because, as we've discussed, unfortunately, Tia did not get a Turquoise Alert. Emily Pike would have not qualified.
Yeah, it wasn't even requested.
No.
Well, DPS told us that there was no formal request for the Turquoise Alert, but here's the criteria. You have to be a missing person under the age of 65. Law enforcement has exhausted all available resources locally. That would be the investigative agency. That would be White Mountain Apache Police in this case. Yeah. The circumstances, this person has gone missing under unexplained or suspicious circumstances, and they are not determined to be a runaway as the only reason for them being missing. Also believed to be in danger or with a potentially dangerous person, and that information could assist in safe recovery. So all these things have to be checked off for them to say, okay, we have everything needed checked off for Turquoise Alert, and then go to DPS, and then DPS will then, issue that Turquoise Alert. So we don't know how much work or effort was even done by the investigative agency.
Right. It's important to, make the distinction between a missing person and a runaway, right? The circumstances surrounding those two are vastly different. Runaway, they do on their own accord. Missing, there's some, other a circumstance regarding why they're missing. And as you mentioned, it's important that DPS is the pass-through for all of these alerts, all 4 alerts, right? So as you mentioned, local law enforcement or some sort of investigating agency would then go to DPS and say, hey, here's the criteria that we think that they have met that would qualify for said alert. And in this case, a turquoise alert. They have said on record to before DPS has that, look, there are a lot of legal requirements to meet this particular alert, turquoise specifically. And, some people would, again, argue, well, what's the downside, right? Let's say they don't meet all of them. They meet all but one qualification. Where does it hurt to issue the turquoise alert? Well, if you look long term, as we've seen with Amber Alerts, they've been around for 30 years, the concern is that it dilutes it to the point where they're not as effective. You want all of these alerts, turquoise specifically, you want all of them to be effective. And so the criteria are there to hopefully, without shifting from the purpose of what they're designed to do, is that when somebody hears of a turquoise alert, they know immediately how serious it is. Similar to an Amber Alert. When we get an Amber Alert on our phone, we see it on the board, we get it in our emails, whatever, we know that that's serious. We know that these kids are in danger. The criteria is that it's not just a custody dispute, that these kids are missing and they could be in danger. We, as the public, know that's the purpose of an Amber Alert. And I think the effectiveness of a turquoise alert, hopefully we'll get to that point, but we've only had 2 this year.
But is there too much criteria, too many boxes to check off? And if you do change the language, wouldn't this have to go into the legislative session in 2026?
They'd have to make
this was
amendments,
just passed and signed. Yes, you would need amendments. It's not, out of this world. But we've had people from this community, especially obviously in the White Mountain Apache tribe, who are upset about what has happened and feel that more should have been done, not by DPS, but by White Mountain Apache Police. Our very own Nicole Krasean spoke with an advocate for missing persons, specifically missing children in Arizona, and that advocate has been in very heavy contact with the family of Tia. And so there is definitely frustration coming from within the family, and here's what Nicole's learned.
She was the baby of the family, the youngest of a large family. And so she was nicknamed Tia Baby, baby girl. I mean, she was their little angel. I mean, she was just so important to them. And she was a child. She loved all the things that children love, being outdoors, playing outdoors, exploring. She loved art. She loved painting. She was creative. And this is now taken from them, and the rest of her life is taken from her. And so they're in the middle of that grief, but I think it's starting to turn for them now into asking why certain things weren't done when she first went missing, and why they're not hearing from the officials in their own community now that she's gone. Leela told me that she spent several hours with them over the weekend, really getting to know them and hear about Tia. And a lot of the frustration that they're feeling already is just over the lack of information that they got while she was missing and then after she was found. It seems like, according to the family, they found out important parts of this case, including the fact that it was being investigated as a homicide, from outside sources, not from the police department themselves. And for any family, that would be devastating to hear, but also very frustrating, because you want to be the first to find that out. And White Mountain Apache Police Department, according to DPS, would have had to trigger any sort of alert that DPS could have sent out across the state, whether it would be the turquoise alert, whether it would be a flyer or a bolo. That would have had to come from White Mountain Apache. So, I'm asking the same question you're asking of what resources were used to determine that this 16-year-old girl, was in need of something and was her family didn't know where she was. No one knew where she was. And how were those resources used? According to DPS, they weren't even requested. So that is a red flag for, that family and for advocates.
So we could go on and on about this very tragic case with Tia, but it is very fluid, still under investigation, and the hope is that there will be justice. This is now, I think, raised a lot of red flags and concerns about what could have been done better, as it is always when we report on these things and these stories, and that's the sad part, is that what could have been done or what was failed. But let's talk about 17-year-old Merkeisha Declay. I really had no idea about this case. It was brought up to me after this was all going on, and people from the tribe were saying, this was a girl that in 2023, December 15, 2023, she did run away from home, 17 years old, and then an investigation was done, but it took until March 2024. That's when skeletal remains were discovered by fishermen about 3.5 miles from Merkeisha's residence. Now, for those who don't know this area, and I'm learning this as well, it's about 4 minutes between where Merkeisha was found near Bork Canyon and where Tia was found in Knott's Landing. I mean, that's really close. They're two girls from the same tribe who live in the same area, all within about less than 2 years difference.
Yeah, I will paint the picture real quick. This is a very rural community, beautiful area of eastern Arizona. If you've never been, just a kind of picturesque scene in the what makes Arizona so beautiful. You can see why people live up here. It's very quiet, very tranquil. And then again, the area that we're talking about is a residential community off the highway there, the main highway that runs from Whiteriver up north.
So this is like on opposite ends, like when you look at the map between these two, but so close.
This is very close.
The canyon and Knott's Landing.
Right. And we have been told by some residents and community members up there that this is an area that's popular for younger people to maybe kind of congregate. It's got some trails and things like that, but it's not uncommon to see people go out into this area. Again, this is why I think as we're learning these cases in these communities, social media is really the only way to get the news out there. And look, I mean, the White Mountain Apache, not great at posting information on social media. Facebook seems to be the primary for this.
They don't even have a public information officer, which we're not surprised about. But this happened March 17, 2024. April 8th, 2025, after using that familial DNA from Merkeisha's relatives, they were able to identify her and confirm that there was a match between her and the skeletal remains that
we're
they
talking
found.
a year and a half later,
yeah,
right?
April 8th, and then family finds out a few days later, April 11, 2025, MMU Special Agent with White Mountain Apache Special Agent and Victim Services Representative delivered the official death notification to Merkeisha's family, but they say there's no evidence of foul play in connection with the case. According to the Bureau of Indian Affairs, there's no evidence of foul play. I spoke to a couple family members of Merkeisha. Obviously, they're still, I think, trying to grapple with that. What happened to her? How could this be? I think they believe that not enough was done. Maybe they don't want to accept that there's no foul play evident, and you can understand that. So those are the differences between the case with Merkeisha and Tia. One believed to be murder, and one they're saying it wasn't, but just so close to each other and the same age. It is eerie. So
I mean, look, what are we left then with when it comes to the case? We've got one that's listed as a homicide. We've got another one that is not listed as a homicide, but that leaves open the idea that, was it suicide? Did she die in the elements of the weather? And we're talking about December of 2023, very cold up there.
Do we know, so they should have said then we believe this to be a suicide, but is there just not enough evidence to show that is it an undetermined cause of death, but they're just saying that there's no foul play with Merkeisha Declay.
Right. And again, we're talking about the elements at the scene. Whatever, as gruesome as it may sound, whatever evidence was at the scene, whatever was left of her, do they have enough to determine an exact cause of death?
This is a good point. From December 2023 to March 2024, found by fishermen.
Right.
Extremely tragic, but I wanted to make sure that we talked about her as well, even though they're saying there's no foul play, just because the proximity is so close. And then how can you forget? We briefly mentioned Emily Pike, but 14-year-old Emily Pike's killer or killers still have not been arrested. I mean, this was Valentine's Day 2025, found outside of Globe, the US 60. We've been to that spot. She was found dismembered in trash bags. Horrific imagery, but this location 45 minutes away from this community, Knots Landing, this Whiteriver community. I mean, not extremely far, but it's just, and I'm sure there's just more people that we have not discussed, but I think, and for people out there watching, we have to get confirmation on these cases and identities, and we, I'm sure there's a lot of people who have gone missing, but these are ones that stand out within this time span from 2023 to 2025.
And I think for people watching, many of them may know of the systematic trauma that is experienced on these tribal lands. We have 22 tribal communities in Arizona. That is by far the most of any state. And I think by and large, not just us, but other media outlets over the years have covered the concern regarding missing women on tribal land, and now, of course, younger women as well.
Kids, men, yeah.
And it's a topic that is discussed among the community a lot. So we could highlight all the cases, and every case would be different. As we have learned with certain domestic cases, typically the attacker is someone known to the victim, right? Whether that's the case for Emily Pike or Tia, we'll have to wait on Declay, but more specifically, Tia and Emily Pike, did they know their attacker? Did they have any relation or any sort of contact with their attacker before they were murdered? Remains to be seen. And we should mention that law enforcement went back out to the scene of Tia's murder. I think the next weekend, we had heard from community members that they were out searching that same area.
It would have to be about 4 or 5 days, because this was reported on the 3rd. Yeah, they're back out here on the weekend, November 8th. So, and it could continue to be that way. Obviously, very fluid. And in Declay's case, it's closed. But I think, like I said, it was important to bring attention to that, even if foul play is not believed to be involved. I think it's shedding light on these girls. Closure. Obviously, justice is needed for not only Emily Pike, but Tia as well, being the most recent. Clearly deep-rooted issues, systemic issues, like you mentioned, and these families are looking for justice and closure. And so with all of these cases, we'll continue to follow up, especially with this new one, with Chalastia Colelay's case. We'll continue to update you all. Thank you for watching. Please like, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications. You're watching On the Record.